if you work from home, you're about to get fired. And I got some numbers, I got some stats. I'm going to share them with you today, and I share some stories of why I think so. So, as you know, Dell right here, it's been all over the news. 50% of their workforce was like, nah, we're not going to come back to the office. And technically, I think this is a great idea, that employees are standing up to their employer and saying, we don't want to do that. We love our work lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And so we're like, we're not going to come back to the office, right? But there's problems. There's bigger problems on the horizon than just that, right? So why do I think that? Well, articles like this that are saying that return to office mandate is layoffs in sheep's clothing, right? So what do we think about that? Well, I think that employers, CEOs, and executives are telling people to come back to the office while they're gone, actually. While they moved out of state, because they probably do an address change. They'll tell their boss, hey, I moved from this office to that office, and I'm kind of out of that state where I used to go to the office. So now you're like, well, that shouldn't be a big issue. No, but if you lived in if you lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco, New York, some of these more expensive states, and you sold your house, you moved to somewhere new, right? And you started a whole new life, and all of a sudden your boss is like, hey, you're gonna have to come back to the office. And you're like, what are you talking about? I sold my house, I bought another house, I'm now living, Arizona, who knows, Florida, somewhere completely different than when you were before. And he's like, well, you got to come back to the office. They give you 2-3 months or you're out. And the problem that I see is, and I've actually had conversations with people that were at that exact same spot, is that you're not even protected from the layoff, even if you move. So one of the companies that I've actually like Allison knows, actually said, hey, we're closing down this satellite office. So you got to move to a whole nother state from Seattle. You need to move to a whole nother state. And they did so many layoffs. They did like 4, 5, 6 rounds of layoffs, and to keep laying more and more people off. And then they're like, hey, we're closing this whole office. If you still want a job, you got to move. And so now you're at such hard predicament. Am I going to move? Or am I going to stay? Because am I going to quit or am I going to move? Because if you're going to move and take that leap, move and say, I really need this job, I'm going to do it. There's no guarantee that they're not going to lay you off. So you might move, and 2 months down the road, they're like, ha, just kidding, you're fired, get out. And you just did a whole costly move, stressful on the whole family, relocated, and now you live in somewhere where you have no support network, you have no friends, you just moved for your job, and they just fired you. So now you're double in trouble, right? Because no friends, no family, and you got fired. So never ever trust an employee. So when I was in an employer, sorry, not an employee, never trust your employer. So when I was starting off at college, I was in college and I had an internship. And so when I was in college and had an internship, I was working at this machine shop repairing electric motors, right, for my electrical engineering degree. So I was working there, and my yearly report, my annual report, I went to the office of my boss and it came out mediocre. And my mentor, was all upset. I didn't get, like a good qualifying end report. I succeeded, but I didn't. It was like a B, or it wasn't even that great. So I was all upset about it. So I went to my mentor and I said, yo, I just, kind of failed. At work, I got all these, I had like stars, I had like 1 to 5 star ratings on the report and says, how friendly are you with customer service? How fast are you with your work? And I had like 3s and 2s and not a lot of 5s. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm failing. So I went to him, talked about it, and he said, did you get more money? The first question. I said, yes, I did, because my contract had, an annual bump in it. And I said, yeah, I have gotten more money. So they're like, let me see this report you got. So he took it, he didn't even look at it. He curled it up, put it in a trash can, and said, listen, he was an old timer. So when I was starting off, he was like 3 years from retirement. He said, this is what I learned in my long years of working. It doesn't matter what's on paper. What matters is what's in your wallet and how much you get. So I was like, oh, okay. So he took that and actually tossed it in the trash can. And he pulled out an image that looked exactly like this. And he said, you got to remember, we as workers come from a different standpoint as your boss. And this can help you out so much in life. He said, look at what the boss sees from the top. He sees all shit. And when you look up, you only see assholes. And this is kind of like a metaphor, not necessarily taken word by word for it, but he said that this is how it normally runs. The boss tells, hey, we need to do this. We need to implement this strategy. They say, yeah, we'll do it. Then the boss thinks, okay, the strategy is going to be implemented. And then they do something, implement a completely different strategy than he thought. And so he's like, oh, nobody's listening. Nobody's doing this. And so that's where it comes from, like all assholes, right? All idiots and all shit. So it's like, okay. So moral of that story is that it's all about the money. How much are you going to make at the end? If you get a bad annual report, it doesn't really matter unless you get more money. And it's always great to have your boss on your side. So if your mentor and your boss are cool with you working remote, you're good. He will go to combat for you. But he can only do so much, right? So that's why it's really important. Office also has politics. And in every office, there's people that are liked and not liked. And if you can find the people that are liked and associate yourself with them, it's way, way better than people that are not liked, right? And I shouldn't even say this, but it's kind of like common knowledge, right? And so if you're in a virtual remote setting and you're easy to work with, you're flexible, you can take a meeting, after hours at your spot, and be like, I can jump on and, help out a little bit. That makes you way more likely to stay rather than being on the chopping block. But that also doesn't count for if they do a bunch of chopping. But if they lay off a whole department, all this goes out the door, right? So now, you're a good little remote employee, right? And you just got fired. And now I'm looking at it like, oh my gosh. And normally I'm like, you have good opportunities, you're doing good stuff, you can find another job. But this whole layoff thing gets really, really scary when you're like this creator here. So let's watch this video real quick.
I have $6,300 in minimum payments. You heard that right. $6,340-ish net take home, minus the 2 months of the year that I get an extra paycheck. $6,300 out.
Okay. So now we just saw this video, and this woman is in a crushing amount of debt. And for me, I'm like, if you're at work, if you work and your whole paycheck goes to just payments on the minimum balance, that's a problem. That's a huge, huge problem. So who gave you all these loans, right? First of all. But second of all is, if you're going to get laid off in a situation like this, you're going to be scared and you're going to be freaking out. And if other people get laid off that have emergency funds and whatnot, you can weather the storm. But if you're like this person that has $120,000 in debt and is making $6,000 minimum payments, almost her full paycheck, is a single mom, there are problems on the horizon. there's really, really big problems because you can never, ever think that your job is safe. So you always need to be networking, always need to have the resume polished. And I think a lot of Americans are in that same basket. And if you're in one of these baskets, you need to start being in a group, in a network of people that that really want to further their careers. Because if you're not furthering your career and moving your career along, and this happens, you're going to be really, really screwed. And that is where suicide comes into play. This is where depression comes into play. This is where all the stuff's going to go bad because you're in a hole, you can't come out, and the credit card debt is just snowballing. It is just snowballing. So Ali started this community that I'm also part of. It's it's this one right here. Super cool. Consider joining if you want to move your career along and job search or something else. But this isn't what I made this video about. This video is about if you already have a community, you don't need to join. But if you don't and you do want to further your career, you should really, really consider joining. It's cancelable anytime. You can cancel. You can do you could do whatever, right? It's like $20 a month or something. But if if you are going to be laid off, you should really consider your options of if you're a remote worker. Let me say it this way: if you're a remote worker, you really, really need to get your resume polished, and you need to start networking, and you need to be giving first rather than receiving, because this is just this whole layoff thing. It's not over. When I had made another video the other day that said corporate efficiency, that buzzword has been in so many documents now that it's scary, even scary for me to be like, oh my gosh, corporate efficiencies. So now I'm looking and I'm like, man, all these people that are, working at Dell and working at all these other companies, you're like, oh man, why aren't they remote? And that question I cannot answer. I think it's about to monitor people. I think it's just to control them and trying to monitor them. Because soon, this company also called all their office people back. And it's crazy how all these people, do their, the executives do their own thing, just like the CEO of Salesforce. He's like, I can't come back to the. First they said, no, let me repeat this. First they said, hey, just we're gonna put everybody remote, indefinite. That's great. So then after a year and a half, he was like, hey, remote work doesn't work out for our employees. We got to come back to the office. Everybody's got to come back to the office. And so then they asked him, are you coming back to the office? No, my remote work, me and my team, the remote work works better for us. So you see this picture again, right? Executives make the rules. They don't have to oblige by them. So now, if you're an employee that is not an executive, you need to be like a hawk. You need to have your resume up. You need to be networking. You need to go on LinkedIn and find peers that are in your field and start networking with them. And start putting yourself out there. Post on LinkedIn or join the group, right? Because it is detrimental that you join some sort of community where you can exchange ideas, be on some podcasts, and be a subject matter expert. Because nowadays, with the work from home, one thing that I've noticed is that there's nothing between you and somebody abroad that can do your job for way less money. There's nothing in between. You can get some person from overseas. Yeah, they might not speak as well English, but they sure as well gonna make it out with hard work. They can do your job better than you for probably 10% of your salary. So if you're going to think about that, we started this work from home trend, and now we're calling everybody back to the office. And then they're like, hey, we have these offices. But in the back of their mind, these CEOs say, hey, we can put we can tear down whole teams and outsource them to other places. And this is kind of what John Deere did. Then they're like, hey, let's just outsource it to Mexico, let them do it all, and and then we can make even more profits. And so if you're not growing, you're dying, because that is just the name of the game right now. Because this guy right here, check this out, wanted to work at a where did he, like, let's read it together. This guy wrote me and said he wanted to entry-level tech professional with previous experience in oil and gas automation. I've applied to 8,000 jobs. Can you believe that? 8,000 jobs. 8,000 jobs after the layoff. It's been 25 months now. So, okay, let's see. So he said he's been employed for 8 months, right? So let's do 8,000 jobs divided by 25 months. That is 332 jobs a month divided by 30 days. So that is almost 11 jobs a day he applied to. So my question to that comment would be, have you applied in a way that you have quality resumes? Because if you apply at that rate, at 11 a day, I do not know how good you network with your people. And if you just click and apply, that easy button to apply. So I'm not 100% sure if that is actually worth the time, because I've personally seen it work better if you send out 10 quality applications than 100 just easy apply, because they get lost in the ATS, all these tracking systems, right? So, man, you gotta level up, because these people around here that are taking your job, they're not playing. They're submitting project portfolios, they're sending videos out, they're doing everything they can to get a job. 25 months, holy smokes, that's a long time to find a job. So, yeah, you got to be on top of your game nowadays. You got to be on fire and tell them everything they want to hear. And yeah, and I've seen creators that say, hey, I've been job searching, so I got a job, but I ain't stopping, because I don't know in a month or so if they're going to let me go again. And this one person had 3 jobs in the last 2 years because she got laid off out of all of them. One of them, the department closed. One of them, they moved the jobs overseas. And now she's on her 3rd job. And she's like, I ain't stopping job searching. I'm interviewing, I'm doing. And if, I'm networking, because if something happens, they're going to lay me off again. They're going to say, hey, we're moving your department. We're doing job cuts. We need to save some money. And then you're out again. So you got to be so vigilant today. And it's scary because you're so replaceable, and everybody's replaceable. The question just is that how skilled are you? How skilled and how irreplaceable really are you? Because I've also seen these Reddit stories where there's this one guy, there's this one tech that knows how to do one part, and he's basically he holds all the knowledge, and then they let him go, and then they're like, oh shit. And so they had to call the owner back and had to, teach him how stuff's done. And it is crucial to you guys to gain skills that are so valuable for the company, that they also know that not only you, but that your boss knows, and that they put a roster on there with the names, right? So what is a roster with the names? Okay, I'm gonna tell you. So I've seen videos of um of managers actually making a list of how valuable they're to the company, and how crucial and how much they're good to work with, and then they submit that to HR, and then HR decides who's gonna be let go. So they fill out, like the roster name, how crucial they're to the organization, and how valuable they are, and how good they're to work with, and they number it from 1 to 5. And then HR says, hey, John, you scored very low on the crucialness. You're out. and then they're gonna let you go, not based off of race or not based off of salary, just how crucial you're to the business. So that's why you need to show your boss how crucial you are to the business. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about all this. I am ready to see what's coming next because I love to see the employees have the upper hand again. But for that, interest rates need to come down. Peak companies need to be willing to invest more into the economy, into the world. And right now, it's on everything is on so shaky grounds. So let me know what you guys think about all these layoffs, and let me know if you have a topic for me to cover. If you watched for so long, please like and subscribe, hit the bell notification, and consider joining the community. And I will see you later.